Hi, hope you've been watching this series of Norma's Zoom training session where I helped her to prepare for and pass her part 3 test. And here's the 4th video in the 8-part series. As always, feel free to email me with any questions to jeff@advancedadi.co.uk and I'll get back to you ASAP.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
Which is what my past brain would have done. Thought, oh, I need to do something.
yeah. So if I can just see you showing me how you can just potentially push it on a little bit, then that would be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's rather than, because in my mind, I thought, okay, if she gets these rounds within 15, 20 minutes, I've got 10 minutes left. So do I need to set a new goal completely with her? And then, but I'm not going to have the time to do that, obviously. And the examiner will just get annoyed, I think.
Yeah, I mean, so let's say, for example, again, I don't know the environment that you're driving
Yeah.
in, but let's turn, let's imagine she turns around and says, um, "Yeah, I'd really like some help with reverse bay parking because I just find that a bit of a nightmare." You go, okay, right, that's fine. So yeah, we can head over to that area. That's going to take maybe 8 or 9 minutes to get to. And I'll give you a bit of help with parallel parking. And the examiner's thinking, you've only got 10 minutes left. Why are you going to drive over there? At best, you're going to get one attempt to do a reverse bay park, and we're probably going to be late back to the test centre.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, that it would just be daft.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you might be thinking, oh, well, I'm being very client centered. They've told me they want some help with reverse bay parking. So let's go do that then. And the examiner's thinking, well, that isn't client centered because you're not thinking about where you are. You're not thinking about how long that's going to take. You're not thinking about how much practice you're going to be able to get in.
Yeah.
And you're not thinking about the impact that that's going to have on the context of the lesson as a whole when you've got me sat in the car.
Yeah.
I've asked you to get back to the test centre at a certain time.
Yeah. And I was late in the last part too and got quite a row about it. So I'm very aware of that.
Yeah. So you can do, particularly with a full license holder, you can do feedback or summary, if you like, on the move as you're heading back to the test centre.
Right.
So if you're realising you're running a little bit short of time, that's fine. Just have that conversation as you're going. And then once you're back in the test centre, it's just simply a case of, okay, thanks very much, Emma. Thanks for coming along for your support. The time's up, so we'll need to finish the lesson now. And then the examiner will just go, right, okay, thanks very much. Just give me 10 minutes and we'll have a chat.
Yeah. No, that sounds it makes more sense. It breaks it down better and I think the danger is, of course, when you've got a test coming up like that, your brain does start to do all sorts of things. I overthink. That is classic me. Sure, a lot of people do, but I do. So it's nice to get some clarity, especially with a full license holder. I thought, are they going to want me to pick up every single tiny fault and say it? And that say it, see it, sort it, this kind of thing that doesn't always work with everybody in terms of, sorting everything. It's just not going to happen when her is focusing on one thing,
Yeah. So again, as you probably would have seen me saying to Leela with that video that I sent you, still today, even with audit trainers, a lot of the advice and guidance they give you is based on the old part 3 test that used to exist about 3 decades ago. Okay. Where in order to pass your part 3 test, you had to deliver a very technical lesson to an examiner, role playing being a student. And that's where the training industry and various trainers over the years, decided that, right, in order to make a PDI's job as easy as possible to impress an examiner, let's come up with all sorts of diagrams and bullet points that they can use to give an examiner a briefing. Now let's come up with a set of acronyms that are going to stimulate the PDI to remember the order in which they're meant to explain things to people. And that will also make sure they're covering off all of the main points that I think the examiner wants to hear. Now, I'm not sure whether examiners ever wanted that style of lesson, but the evidence was it worked. But it doesn't work in real life. So now we've moved to, obviously have done since 2017. Now we've moved to what's called client-centered training, driver training. Then it's all about how do we teach people effectively, regardless of their level of ability, regardless of the subject, regardless of the environment that we're in. How do we get inside their heads? How do we figure out what they're thinking? What is making sense? What isn't making sense? What's easy and what's confusing? How can I figure out how to best support them to get the outcomes that they're looking for? How can we then get some evidence of whether that information and that clarity is actually working or not? Well, of course, we've got to put some practice in.
Yeah.
Because we can sit there until we're blue in the face
Talk. Yeah.
and go through a very detailed briefing and explain to them what they need to do and how they need to do it. But if they can't then put that into practice on the move, then that approach isn't going to work.
Yeah.
So we need to get evidence.
Yeah.
Once we've got some evidence, we then need to check in with the student and figure out whether that actually worked for them or not. Because you might be thinking one thing and they're thinking something completely different.
Yeah, exactly. Which does happen if you don't get to the root of it.
Yeah. So even when it comes to a full license holder, and particularly a full license holder, you really want to resist the temptation of giving them any form of driving lesson by highlighting the things that they already know.
Yeah.
And they've been doing for years.
Yeah.
They say they know they should be checking their mirrors. They might not be doing it, but they know they should be.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's something we can just have a light conversation about is moving between, attempts at the roundabout.
Yeah, they know that they shouldn't be too tight up to the vehicle in front. Often they are. But that's easily remedied by just saying, "Oh, can you just back off a little bit for me?"
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need to pull over to the side of the road and go into an in-depth conversation about braking distances and the 2-second rule and the 4-second rule and the 10-second rule, depending on the weather conditions. I mean, you're treating them like a complete learner again, which would be condescending, patronizing.
Yeah.
Just simply saying, just back off a little bit for me.
Yeah.
Bit more. Great.
Yeah.
That's it. That's a nice distance at this speed. That's a nice distance between us and the vehicle in front. Because if they have to hit their brakes hard at any point, we need to be far enough back to be able to recognize that and react to it. But that's good. Let's keep going with that.
Yeah.
But that's it. You've covered it off.
Yeah. You don't need to be stopping. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So you're not treating them like you would a learner in terms of, having, you still have a chat with the learner, but it's more, quite often something like that would be a bit more in depth.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with a learner, an examiner would expect you to make sure there are no knowledge gaps there, with a learner. So if they're driving too close to a vehicle in front, they would be expecting you to say something along the lines of, right, so what do you think about how far we are away from the vehicle in front? Oh, I don't know. Well, we're too close. Let's back off a little bit.
Because they don't.
Yeah, so just remind me, what's the rule that we use to judge whether we are far enough back or not? Is it 2 car lengths? No, it's 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And then you go into that sort of instructor-learner conversation, but that would be inappropriate with a full license holder.
Yeah. So they won't. Yeah, they're not looking at that. That's just given me a lot of. And I didn't think that would be the case, but I just wanted that reassurance somehow. I mean, yeah, the roundabout. She's clearly feeling she really wants to do the, just practice choosing the lanes as she's coming up and feeling confident so that she can go out on her own more and go to the busier towns and cities without feeling that hindrance of I'm not confident at doing this, you know?